Okay, great. We'll come back in a moment, Steve. Thank you. Let's get some reaction now from platformer editor and CNBC contributor Casey Newton. Kim Forrest of Boca Capital is also still with us. Casey, what do you think so far?
Well, so far, I would say the event is proceeding as expected. Some nice little incremental upgrades to the watch, and I think some fairly incremental upgrades are coming to the phone. The big question, as you point out, is how much are these things going to cost, particularly the premium models, and how much new revenue could that drive for Apple?
And what else? I mean, we've seen, Casey, obviously Apple shares often trade lower after a product launch. It's coming off 3/4 of year-on-year revenue declines. It's doing everything it can to boost EPS by doing buybacks, and it's garnering comparisons with IBM. Where does it go from here? Are you excited about the Vision Pro? That's the only bullish narrative I can find, as I mentioned, from investor Vitaly Castanelson, bullish on the Vision Pro, and maybe that's where we're going.
I am bullish on the Vision Pro, at least over the long run, right? Like, I think that there's a good chance that version 1.0 is really only for a small number of early adopters. But when you think about the war chest that Apple has, and the competitive pressure it's under to invent that next generation platform, my expectation is this is going to be something that they are really patient with. And look, if they can essentially give you an IMAX screen that you can throw in your backpack and take with you wherever you're traveling, I think there are going to be a lot of really interesting uses for something like that.
And Kim, what would you add as someone who's, we talked earlier this hour, do I describe you as bullish on the shares, or at least, kind of, maybe you can find the right adjective.
I'm warmly favorable, not like super excited about it. But I will say this. Whenever I first saw the watch, I thought it was the most ridiculous thing. Like, why would we ever need a watch with a phone? And yet, apparently we do, right? I am the most reluctant user of Apple products because of my software engineering bias, that they're overpriced and blah, blah, blah. But, they hooked me. I like the phone. I like the watch. And I think the AR stuff is going to allow them to reach a whole lot more people in the world and give you another reason to have more mobile computing. And I don't think that there's a limit to the appetite on mobile computing. And this is just a new way to get you information when you're out in the world. And let's see if this works. Again, this is a company that innovates in kind of unknown ways. And I'm willing to take a shot on them.
I don't know, Casey, if they've kind of gotten to this part of the presentation yet, but they are reportedly also selling made in India iPhones on launch day for the first time. And that feels really significant, almost more to Washington, maybe than to anybody else, or to India as well, obviously.
Sure, and obviously India could be a huge growth market, and that is a country whose government really wants to see things being made within the country. But of course, Apple itself is under a ton of pressure to diversify that supply chain, particularly at a time when the Chinese government is now saying that iPhones are going to be banned for government workers. So lots of good reasons for Apple to start making iPhones somewhere else.
And what about the potential, Casey, for those sales to go somewhere else? Do you really think they're going to be under pressure? I think China's about 20% of sales.
Yeah, I mean, my distant understanding is that iPhones have been a real status symbol in China, and also that the Chinese government is proud that iPhones are manufactured in China because it shows that the most premium smartphones in the world, some that are the most difficult to manufacture, are made in China. So my understanding is that is a point of national pride, but Apple will not be the first company to get caught in the sort of grinding gears of geopolitics here. And I think we should just expect a lot of change there over the next few years.
All right. Very exciting times.